On this episode of Hudson Valley Hustle, I'm joined by Austin Urban. Austin owns and manages several Airbnb and short-term rental properties in the Hudson Valley. This is a phenomenal interview if you're interested in getting involved in short-term rentals or Airbnbs. So I hope you get a ton of value out of it. Enjoy.
I bought my first place in Hudson with a partner five years ago now.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So wait,
Yeah.
so in 5 years, how many properties do you own now?
Outright, just myself, only 2.
Okay.
But I have partners in about a half dozen others.
Yeah, that's
So
nuts.
a couple in Hudson with a very close family friend of mine that I've known. I mean, we were teenage good friends together. And then a couple in Vermont now with a partner that I actually only knew for a few years at the time we bought the first place. And now we own 2 hospitality properties together. One with my brother. So a little bit of stuff scattered all over, but
Yeah, but you're involved
Yeah.
in that's a lot of property to be
it's a lot.
involved in.
Yeah, definitely a lot of properties, and then manage another like 25 for clients. Everything from like 1-bedroom apartments in Hudson to 7-bedroom, 6,000 square foot houses on 10 acres of land in Hunter.
That's
So
wild.
it's a broad range.
What do you mean by manage? So what do you mean like by managing for clients?
So I don't do any. I would if it was incorporated into a property that had some short-term rentals in it, but I don't do any like large multifamily management, nothing like that. Almost exclusively short-term rental management. So the 2 most typical clients I have are I want to buy an Airbnb and I want nothing to do with it. So I have people that are like, I will put everything in my name, like the utilities are in my name, I'm writing checks in my name, billing the owners, everything but like the deed and the taxes basically are in my name. I have clients that haven't seen their home in 2-3 years. And then the other kind of classic client I have is I'm buying a second home. I want to offset the mortgage, offset the expenses. I'll use it every other weekend, or I won't use it on holidays, so book the holidays for a week kind of thing. So those are the 2 kind of typical tenants clients that I get.
That's wild.
So
in the last and we're rolling, by the way. We're
Okay.
just like
Cool.
this is happening. So
love it.
I would say was COVID a huge boost to the Airbnb market? I feel like people trying to escape and find that little getaway was a huge jolt in that market.
Definitely. So right in the beginning of COVID, it got a little strange. People didn't want to go into other people's houses, especially short term. So if people were looking to rent, it was like 2, 3, 4 months. There was none of this like, I'm going to go in the day after somebody else left, because nobody really knew what was going on. Once the fear started to kind of get dialed back around COVID, people were able to work remote, and that whole like going back to the city for work thing hadn't really started yet.
Yeah.
So that 2021 summer, like a little bit after COVID, was huge, because everybody was like, I'll go away for a week here, I'll work remote a little bit, I'll be in a fun town outside of New York or outside of Boston or wherever they were. I'll bring a couple friends up. So that was a hit. It has, without a doubt, Airbnb has slowed down since then, at least in the areas that I work in. I can't speak for really anything outside of the Northeast, but like Saratoga, Hunter, Hudson, Copake Lake, Southern Vermont, all those places have definitely slowed down, but they're not stale, they're good. But you also have a lot of people that bought houses thinking they were like never going back to the office. So they moved upstate, and now they're like, well, I'm going to turn this into a rental. So you had a ton of people that were renting upstate because they could at that time and they could work there. And now you have a huge amount of houses that were added to the Airbnb market. So it's not only a little bit less demand, it's also saturated.
Sure.
And a lot of people bought a lot of nice houses, put a lot of money into them thinking they were going to be there for a while. So especially in some of these more affluent areas like a Hudson or around Hudson, there's a lot of nice houses on the market for short-term rental.
Yeah. I would imagine if we were having this conversation a few years ago, it'd probably be different type of advice. But somebody that doesn't have an Airbnb property, what kind of Like, where do you start? Where do you even start with Airbnb property or short-term rentals?
So I always look, I look for geographically first, like where are people traveling to? Does it have something that people want to go and see? Are there art galleries? Are there golf courses, ski mountains, shopping, good restaurants? Is it easily accessible from a major city? Like in Hudson, for example, the train station, the Amtrak train, you can get there in 2 hours for $50. It brings you right into the city practically. Looking for things like that. So looking for the areas first, not to say you couldn't have a very cool Airbnb out in the middle of the woods. People do, and there are a lot of those. But I typically like that for that reason, just because more people are going there. So your population of customers is bigger. And then also it adds to just being able to manage it on my end a little bit easier. You can find a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter. Some places that are very remote, you might not be able to find that. Especially if you're a couple hours away from a place where you can make a quick call to get somebody there in 20 minutes for an emergency, heat's out or leak in the ceiling or anything like that. It just makes it a little bit easier to be in a slightly larger place. And when I say large, Hudson's 10,000 people, Saratoga's 35. So these aren't major cities, but they're just real places.
But they're hot spots for tourism,
without a
sure.
doubt. I've said this in the past too. I typically look for a place that has like 2.5 good seasons. A good example of that, or really anything in the Northeast, like I've said, you get a great summer. If you're near a ski mountain, you get winter, and then you get like a little bit of a peak in foliage season. Foliage season is huge up here. October is, across all of my properties, probably one of the most like occupied months. Because you get a lot of weekend travel in the summer, maybe long weekends, a Thursday to a Monday in July.
Yeah.
But I mean, every single day in October is booked all over the place. And then aside from area, looking at houses or apartments to buy, proximity to that place is great. If you're not walkable to shopping, restaurants, and all those other things that the area offers, you need to have some type of amenity at the house. I mean, have like a game room in the basement. Put a pool table in that has a ping pong table top on it. Have a hot tub. A pool is great. Water access at all is a huge bonus. Things like that just kind of elevate your property compared to the next one. Like if you and your neighbor have the same exact house, but you have the hot tub and you're $100 more and somebody's coming for a weekend, they're going to take yours every time. I know hot tub, pool, water, any of those things are one of the most filtered criteria on Airbnb. So just using that, that will separate you from the competitors.
Yeah.
I mean, those things come with added management. I mean, a hot tub can be expensive not to buy, but like every week you need somebody in there cleaning it, balancing it. It can cost you $40 to $80 a week just to manage it.
Sure. Yeah, so, but if it adds that much value to your property, why wouldn't you do it, right? Especially if you're looking at property A and property B has these amenities, property B, even though it's more expensive, it's probably going to go.
I have 2 clients that are right outside of Hudson, and both of them are really nice houses. They're both 10 minutes outside of Hudson. One sleeps 9, one sleeps 8. The one with 9 has a pool, a pond, and a 10-acre yard. The other one has a 6-acre yard, no amenities, not booked at all. The one with the pool and the pond and the views, which I sometimes think views are a little overrated when it comes to picking a house, but like the pool is separating this place immensely from everything else. Like it is fully booked. There's not a single day open in the summer.
Now with the pool though, something like that, I would imagine, is there insurance issues or liability issues that can come up when you have something like that?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just having a pool at your house, no matter what, your insurance is going to go up. I'm not licensed for insurance at all. I always kind of like push it off to, I tell homeowners, just make sure you talk to your insurance agent or provider. What should you do? Worst case scenario. Make sure it's fenced in. Make sure the fence is locked. Child-proof it without a doubt. I'm pretty sure that's standard building.
Just to have.
Code.
I think just to have.
Yeah,
whether you're
all around, at least the state, or I don't know exactly how it's regulated, but I know they all need to be fenced in, a locked fence or a latching fence at least. But yeah, definitely some risk there that some homeowners don't want to take.
Sure.
The other one that always adds risk is like people ask, should they, like if they have a boat on a lake house, I always say just like tell them to rent a boat somewhere else.
Right.
Leave the boats out of it, leave the jet skis out of it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But a pool's a huge plus. So.
Yeah, I would imagine from a marketing standpoint, but like I said, the risk comes with that for sure. But what about, you said it's very busy obviously in the summertime. What about vacancies? I mean, how do you like mitigate the vacancies?
Yeah, so I mean, you're never going to get 100% occupancy. I think different areas and different homes demand a different kind of benchmark occupancy. So that's just something I go over house to house, client to client, depending on where they are and what their goals are. But in the slower seasons, you need to just be comfortable with lowering your rate. It's just come down to that. I mean, because of how saturated and competitive the Airbnb market has got in the Northeast, in some of these high profile areas, if you're not willing to cut your rates in April when there's no snow and it's too cold to be on the lake or in a river or whatever it might be, these dead times, if you're not cutting your rates, you're just not going to fill, which some people are comfortable with that. I mean, I have homeowners with nice homes that are like, if it doesn't rent for this much, I'd rather leave it empty. And then I have homeowners that are like, cut the prices a month before, cut the prices 2 weeks before. If it's still empty, cut it a day before.
Wow.
Like really get after it. And there are price labs, there's software algorithms, things you can use. I actually do it all myself. I just go in like
manually?
I do it. Yeah. I've just had some bad experiences with price labs, like recognizing certain holidays, even though they're in slow times.
Okay.
Like, again, if you're at a lake house, like New Year's Eve, if you're not near a ski mountain, is slow. Like Copake Lake, New Year's Eve is not a peak rate time. It should not be twice your summer rate. It should be the summer rate. So like for instance, like in those times, price labs doesn't always work. So I've just had better luck adjusting my rates as I go.
So you said if somebody's looking for a property, proximity to a hub is super important.
Yeah,
obviously,
definitely.
like you said. Now, assuming that I'm not going to hire somebody like you to manage it for me, which if I were to do something like this, I would 100% do. I don't want to touch it. Like I don't know the first thing about it. So why am I going to do it? But if I'm not going to touch it, or if I'm not going to hire somebody, what do I look for price wise, right? Because I feel like the price of real estate has absolutely jumped up. I mean, it's no secret, but is it harder to get into that market now on your own now versus back then?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, everything pre-COVID, if you bought before COVID, your price I look at like price per bedroom or price per occupant. So whether a bedroom has a twin bed or a king bed is a little bit different. I just look to get, I haven't really thought of what like the perfect formula is for how much you should pay per occupant in a home. But I mean, I paid $350 for my place in Hudson. It's a 2-unit, so really, I'm like $175 into a 4-bedroom apartment that rents. Like that price per occupant has been great for us, extremely successful. That was a good deal. That was before COVID. The house that my partner and I own in Southern Vermont was $200,000. It's a 3-bedroom house. Again, this was pre-COVID. We refinanced it for $310. So even if you use that number, it's a 3-bedroom. Each room sleeps 2, $50,000 an occupant. And that house, pound for pound, definitely not the nicest house I have on the platform. Or manage overall for other clients, but pound for pound, that house has outperformed every single house I can think of.
And is that because of the lower amount per occupant?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lower amount per occupant, and again, it's near ski mountains, it's near a town, it's got it's waterfront to a nice river, a small little creek river. It's got some land, but
what's the sweet spot then for you if you're looking at a property? What's the sweet spot for price per occupant? If it's for a short-term rental, assuming.
I would say, I'm trying to do some quick math in my head of some of the other successful properties. I would say between that like 50 and 75 range, if you could find a house that's in that range that qualifies and kind of checks most of those boxes. It depends too. I mean,
I'm sure location obviously will determine that.
You're not going to find a place on Warren Street in Hudson or on Broadway in Saratoga
Sure.
for that price. It's just not possible. But if you can get close to any of those areas, popular areas geographically, and get in that 50,000 to 80,000 range, you could have a successful house.
Right. As long as you also have some of those amenities, if it's not walking distance, right?
For sure.
Like that's a really good piece of advice.
The easiest amenity I always tell people to add, if they're not in like a no burn area or like in the middle of a Hudson or something, is put a nice fire pit outside.
Really?
Like get some good, like just get a nice little fire pit, like a solo stove in the yard, and get some resin Adirondack chairs you can put around it. That always looks good in a photo. Inexpensive. Cheap way to just add something. I mean, a pool table is a couple grand.
Sure.
Ping pong tables get destroyed. A fire pit in the yard, it'll last, and it's a great little add-on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So.
How important is proximity to you, the owner, when it comes to a property? I'm again assuming that I'm not going to hire a manager. If I want to manage property on my own, how important is it for it to be close by?
It depends, because whether you have a manager or not, like if you hire somebody like me or you're going to self-manage, it's going to come down to like your team. So as long as you have somebody, typically it's like a handyman or one of the cleaners. As long as you have somebody close by that can go and like touch the house, look at the house, respond to something urgent. You don't necessarily need a full-time property manager to just answer an urgent call. So if you have somebody that can do that, proximity doesn't matter too much. Okay. I haven't been in my house in southern Vermont, and I drive by it all the time to go further north. I haven't been in that house in months. So, but I have a handyman that lives right down the road.
Sure.
So if something happens, he's there to fix it. And the cleaner's in there every 2 weeks. So if she notices something, she reports it. Or if something happens while a guest's there, she's also been responsive and going and fixing it if she needs to.
So it sounds like having a network, no matter where you are, is probably the biggest key to success then when it comes to running and managing and maintaining the property, whether you're there or not.
Without a doubt. Cleaner and handyman are the two most important people on the team for sure. If I go into a new place, whether it's for a house of my own or a house for a client, like I'm onboarding a house in Stockbridge, I've got a list. I've got 2 plumbers, 2 electricians, 2 carpenter handyman guys, a list of cleaners. I know where the general stores are. I know where to get supplies, all of that stuff. So like putting that together ahead of time before you even are listed on Airbnb or any short-term rental platform, talk to those people, call them and introduce yourself. Don't just have the number ready. I mean, I've sent people, cleaners especially, into homes way before they're ever cleaning it. I've sent them in before I've even owned the house before.
Right.
Like, hey, go check this place out so that when it's time to clean, like, you know what you're getting yourself into, or the electrician knows where the panel is and knows the amps and knows if it's a new system or an old system. Just being ready will save you tons of problems.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is have an issue in the house and the person that's sent there to fix it is walking around like with their head at the ceiling, like, what am I looking for? Where is this? And you might not even know. So, so know the house and get your team involved and have them know where things are.
So if you have that team, so what's the benefit of having a property manager? What exactly does somebody like you handle for all the clients and then your properties too? It's
a good question. So I do, one of the biggest things I do is I routinely go through every single property. So I have a list. It is
physically?
Yes.
Physically?
It is broken out geographically. But for example, let's say 5 houses on Copake Lake. I have a list of all of the replenished inventory, I call it, that I go through. It's literally just a checklist in a Word document, but I print it out. And I go through the house. I check the toilet paper, the paper towels, the tissues, the hand soaps, all that stuff. Go through the entire place, what's needed. If there are things needed, there always are, especially busy season. Go through the entire place, send an order to the house myself or ask one of the cleaning staff members to go in, put all that stuff away where it's supposed to go. So I do all those site visits. At the same time, I check all the stuff that doesn't need to be replenished. So is the hair dryer there? Is the ironing board and iron there? Are the cleaning like vacuums, stuff like that? Are those things there? Pots and pans? Did somebody break half the wine glasses? Things like that. So make sure that things that are supposed to be there and not leave are still there. And if they're not, again, order it, get it to the house. And then I have a maintenance checklist. So I'll literally stop at a house. I will turn the oven on. I'll run the microwave. I'll make sure the freezer's keeping ice frozen. I'll run all of the utilities, pretty much flip all the light switches, speed test the Wi-Fi. So doing that at least once a month for all of the clients' houses is just a peace of mind. And I typically will send them. Again, some of them just don't even want to be involved.
Yeah.
But the owners that are involved like to know, like, hey, what did you have to fix, or what are you going to have fixed, or what is getting used more that we should keep in the house at a higher, just like keep more toilet paper in the shelves or whatever it might be, what's getting used the most kind of stuff. So that's a benefit. And then talking to the guest interaction is huge. So I've always prided myself on response time. Every single person that messages us on Airbnb across 32 listings I have now, I'm immediately answering them. So I answer 10 o'clock at night, 6 in the morning, every day. I'm on vacation, out to dinner. I mean, I really don't break away from it. But the reality is like Airbnb rates hosts on how quickly they respond. So if you're looking at a property that you're going to book, it will show my picture, my name, Superhost, the amount of reviews, and then it will actually say responds in. And some people are a few minutes, a few hours, a day, doesn't respond. So response time is huge. And I sometimes look in there and I see owners that have read the message before I have, but I'm interacting with them all the time. I'm making sure they are ready before they show up. I give them a welcome guidebook right when they book. Answer questions along the way, give them restaurant recommendations, questions while they're there. Where's this? How do I do that?
So you're almost like a concierge too. Like
Yeah, it's the whole.
It's everything.
It's nonstop. And if you spend a weekend with me, a Saturday and Sunday when most of my friends are not working, you'll notice that I'm doing stuff the entire time, and that's just the stuff owners don't want to do.
Yeah, sure.
Which I totally get. I mean, a lot of the owners that are not involved at all, like they're retired or. Like they have whatever, kids, a dog, a family, like stuff like that.
Sure.
So they want to break away from that side, or they just don't know it.
Yeah.
They don't know how to interact like that.
That's good. I mean, it's worth it. I mean, at that point, when you're
definitely.
I always feel like if you can buy back your time, buy it.
Yeah, for sure.
Buy it. It's the only thing that you can't replenish.
Yeah.
So if you can afford to have somebody take care of the things that they're good at taking care of for you, do it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are like, I'll stay in my lane and I'll let you stay in yours kind of thing. And I mean, it's happened a few times where in the beginning I have the conversation of like, what will you do for me? And I go through basically what I just said. And they're like, all right, I'll give this a shot. And then a month or two later, they're like, okay, this is annoying.
Yeah.
And they'll have 2 guests in a row that are running out of supplies, or they have guests asking them questions at 10:30 at night and they just don't want to deal with it. And it's like, all right, Austin, we'll use you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it's got to be a lot of work to manage a property, especially when you have people coming in and out. I almost imagine it would be more difficult to manage that than a long-term rental, because if there's so many people coming in and out, there's constant maintenance that has to happen, constant changeover.
Without a doubt. I mean, especially in the peak seasons, if you're trying to do same day flips where people check out I usually do 11 and try to get people in at 4. I mean, if something breaks during somebody's stay, or you need to get something in there to replenish something or whatever it may be, often like July and August at a lot of these waterfront, pool, Hudson, Northeast areas, like you get that 5-hour window to get in there and get stuff done.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I do disclose, especially the houses with a lot of property or the amenities like a pool. I do say like lawn care happens on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. So like if you're here during that time, you're going to see a lawnmower driving around.
Yep.
So there are just certain things that if you're going to try to book as much as you can, I just say disclose it, but they're going to have to happen when people are there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah,
still
the
a house.
turnovers. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they require maintenance.
Absolutely.
But a lot of turnover gets hectic. And I mean, it's another thing about that is scheduling the cleaners. I have a non-negotiable, like Monday is the schedule of the cleanings day. So every Monday I will reconfirm a month out. So 3 weeks out, reconfirm everything that's already scheduled. And then if anything's scheduled for that following week, get that on the books as well.
Yeah.
Some places that are so booked out, I'm just like, here's the next 3 months.
Yep. Yeah, get it scheduled.
Because they are that booked.
Yeah.
That nothing else can fit into those schedules. So it's able to be done that way. And
But
then
again, that's a property manager. That's a good property manager staying on top of that too. Because otherwise you're having to do that.
Yeah. And as long as you keep up with like the near future bookings or cancellations to adjust them a little bit, once a week is totally fine to keep that in check. So,
but even still, that's another thing.
Yeah,
that's just another thing.
The list just goes on. Yeah.
Yeah, which no, that totally makes sense. I always think about the horror story guests. Have you had them?
That's another one I get all the time. It's funny because a lot of people that are totally foreign, like to short-term rentals, like they haven't even done it themselves or rented a place before.
Yeah.
Always ask, like, how many bad guests am I going to get? I can luckily say I cannot think of one single instance of a horror story guest where like I walked in and like stuff was broken, the place was trash, things were missing, stains all over. That just has not happened. I've seen plenty of houses, especially higher occupancy houses, where it was very obvious that like they threw a party or it was like a bachelor party or something. There's a ton of garbage, specifically like beer cans or Solo cups, stuff like that. Which at the end of the day, if it's bagged, trashed, and thrown out, and nothing's broken or damaged, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Some people just don't like their houses treated like that.
Sure.
Typically the ones that use the home themselves and rent it out, which I totally get. So we just set in the rules like not to do that. But the worst thing I can think of that's happened with a rental was actually not a horror story of the guests, but when I'm onboarding a new house, I always go before the guests show up for the first few, just to make sure like things were laid out, like towels are on the bed properly, the kitchen looks the way I want it to, like all of the boxes are checked before guests arrive. And it was the first rental. It was a 1 week, mid-July rental at a lake house. And I checked it on like a Wednesday and they arrived on Friday. It was cleaned, ready to go. And there was a storm on Thursday, and all I did was go back to the house and make sure like trees didn't fall down in the yard or anything. I never went back into the house after the storm. And it was either like their generator or like the pole next to their house had got struck by lightning, and it totally fried every single thing in the house. So all of the air conditioning was shot, every outlet in the shot, no Wi-Fi, no TV, no appliances. And these people show up and they're like, hey, nothing here works. And I'm like, I was there 2 days ago. Like I tested everything, went through the whole maintenance list. Everything worked. So these people were very understanding. They were totally cool with it. We're giving them a free Monday through Friday this summer, same dates.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
They never asked for a refund as long as we gave them the booking this year. Very understanding, because I've had people find a hair on the floor and give me a harder time than these people did. But we ended up taking care of them pretty well. And I was running to the Spectrum branch. I think it was down here, actually, one of the local areas down here, or maybe like Kingston. And I was getting all the Wi-Fi stuff, bringing that up. I had the HVAC company there fixing the air conditioning. And I think like midway through the stay, we got them 75% back on, and they were happy with that, and they just wanted AC.
Yeah, sure.
And working appliances.
I mean, that's the
totally
worst.
That's the worst thing that's happened. And honestly, like I said, aside from like garbage and stuff, no real horror stories. A dog going to the bathroom on the floor or something is like happens every now and then, but nothing too bad.
Yeah, there's a property that I was interested in. Popular for hunting.
Yeah.
And is that like safety standpoint? How do you deal with stuff like that? I guess like it could be very risky. Have good insurance.
Yeah, I mean, hunting. Is it just like a cabin on a large piece of property or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I assume you're not providing the hunting rifles.
No.
These people are bringing their own stuff. I mean, I would say maybe, I don't know, if you're going to allow guns on the property, maybe some type of added waiver that somebody signs,
Right.
or again, like I would ask an insurance agent what the best route is.
Yeah.
Airbnb is actually surprisingly helpful. Nobody really knows this. That's why they charge a fee. It's not just because they're greedy, but you are able to reach out to support and talk to Airbnb, especially if you're a superhost. They have a full dedicated team. You can ask them questions like that. And there is insurance included in Airbnb. Another thing most people don't know. There's it's called Air Cover. There's a $2 million liability insurance policy on every booking.
Is that part of your fee?
That's not part of my fee.
I'm
That's
sorry,
part
like
of their
Airbnb's fee?
Yeah. So like a lot of people again think like, oh, I want to go off Airbnb, and a lot of times I have owners that are like, I want to keep people on Airbnb. I'll pay the fee and I'll let them pay their fee.
Sure.
Because I want a record of who's there and their contact info, and I want Airbnb to see it. If you talk to somebody offline on Airbnb and try to file some type of claim against them that was said offline, something happened, they won't even acknowledge the personal interaction, like text messages or email. So I typically try to keep everything on the platform.
That's smart.
Just for that reason.
Yeah, that's really good.
So.
Is there a big piece of advice that you would have for somebody that's thinking about getting their first property?
Yeah, I mean, I said this, I looked for so long and looked at so many different things. And honestly, at the end of the day, when I got involved in my first place, it was a 2-family in Hudson with my close friend. We kind of knew right when we walked in, we were in the first of the 2 units, and we looked at each other in 2 minutes. We were like, this is definitely the one. But I think you just kind of got to get in. I mean, if you jump in the deep end, you learn how to swim. Kind of mentality. You'll hit bumps along the road. Just be ready for them. Be as prepared as you can. It's a lot of money. Typically, a home at any stage of your life is one of the biggest expenses that you're ever going to have, especially all at once. So just do the math. Make sure you know. I mean, forecast unexpected expenses, worst case scenarios. But just get involved, jump in, and you'll learn a little bit along the way.
And hire somebody like you.
Or do that. Yeah.
that does this every single day.
Yeah.
Just one other thing I wanted to touch on. You had mentioned that you actually also run a foundation also. So amongst all the properties that you manage and all the stuff you do, what is the foundation about?
So this is the 5th year that the month-long event has happened. It's called the For You Foundation. This is actually the first year the foundation itself has now been created. Before it was just the event, and the money was donated to another nonprofit. Now it's going to go to our foundation, and we're going to allocate it a little bit differently. We have a 7-member board that will meet and allocate the funds to different people or organizations or research.
What's the event?
It's called Miles for MSA. So MSA is it's called multiple system atrophy. It's a neurological brain condition, similar to like an ALS/Parkinson's. It's not the same as ALS, but it's just in layman's terms, it's very similar. And the event is 100 miles of running or 300 miles of biking over the course of 30 months, and just raising money along the way.
30 months?
Or sorry, 30 days.
I was like,
so
I
the
can
1
do
month.
that. I'm like, that sounds more reasonable.
Yeah, no. 30 days, so 1 month. It ends on the 31st day, where we kind of tell everybody, run 99 miles. And then on the last day, we actually as many people, donors or participants, get together, run the last mile together. And we do like a food truck, a band, drinks, hang out.
Where do you typically do that?
So the last year we did it at Mickey's Marina on Copake Lake. The year before that we did it at Copake Country Club on Copake Lake, and I think I'm going to actually do it at my family's house on the lake this year.
Nice.
So that'll be fun. Typically it's like 100 people that show up.
Where did it start? Why?
Yeah, so I had a family member diagnosed with it right before COVID, and then COVID kind of shut everything down. And I think it was like mid-April, and I was like, I'm going to do this in May. So I just did it alone. I was bored. Like I'm a very active person. I run, work out, bike 4 or 5 days a week. Was not going to homes or office or anything much. So I just was like, I'm going to do this, reach out to close family and friends. We weren't telling too many people about it at the time. Raised just over 15,000 the first year, and I did it alone. And I had a few people the second year ask me, hey, I'll do this with you. So the second year grew to 12 people, 12 or 13. And then the third year, people were asking me, hey, I don't run, but can I do something else? And I was like, well, we'll do a biking component. And I was like, I literally went to the gym because I didn't bike too much at that time. I went to the gym. I was like, I know how long it takes me to run 3.5 miles, which is about the daily average that you have to do over 30 days. And I was like, let's just see how far I get in that amount of time. So we did a 1-to-3 ratio. And I actually do both, but now it's at 35 participants. I mean, there's a girl, this girl Taylor, that is in Hawaii. She runs it. A few people in California, Florida, Colorado, all over the Northeast.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's. I mean, there are people that run it that I've never met in person. So and like just yesterday, somebody joined our GoFundMe page that I've never even talked to. Like not even, usually I get like a text like, hey, I want to join. But raised $135,000 last year. And in the last 4 years, 330-ish.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's grown to a pretty cool event.
That's now all the money goes through the new foundation, right? Where does it benefit?
Yeah. So the two things that we're mainly going to allocate funds towards are research, which we will do in partnership with what used to be called the MSA Coalition, is now called Mission MSA.
Okay.
So I still know the people there very well. A few of the people that run it. We'll be in continuous contact, and I will do it through them to allocate it towards specific research all over the world, actually. And then I'm going to partner with them as well. I think they're one of the only, and really the only one for MSA specifically that I've really encountered, at least in the U.S. So I will work with them to find families that maybe need help purchasing a wheelchair, a cane, travel to an appointment. There are a lot of unexpected expenses that come into this. I mean, patients can take one sidestep and fall and get injured. So there are all these people that can't afford to take care of themselves or do what's necessary to mitigate risk with this condition. So those are going to be the two main focuses of the funds.
That's great. That's impressive over the last few years. What you did with that.
We've got three kind of high donors. One in particular that gives us a very generous amount of money.
That's great.
Year, so
how can somebody find that? Is there a website for it, or is there?
It's the foryoufoundation.com. It's the word the number 4, the letter U, foundation.com.
Nice. That's great. And if somebody wants to buy an Airbnb or get into that business, how do they reach out to you? Because definitely, you're definitely a resource for that.
Yeah, without 100%. A doubt. And I field a lot of questions all the time. I mean, I'm very responsive on Instagram, email, text, and people that I've never met ask me questions and stuff, and I shoot them quick answers back all the time. My website is very easy. It's just austinurbanrealestate.com. And my Instagram is realestate_urban.
Sweet. That's awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on. This has been super
pleasure.
valuable, really great. Good luck with the foundation.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.